We are officially live with NGYT. Hi. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Hello. Hi guys. Give me a wave if you're joining. Thanks, my family follow me. Hi Molly, thanks for joining. And hi Ben. So today we're going to have a Q&A about mental health and well-being with Dr. Radha, who's about ready to join us. We're just waiting for more people to join up so everyone can be here, ready on time. Hi Lizzie. Hi Nev Luton. Oh, hi Neil. It's good to see you all joining in. We're just getting ready for the live. Hi Lauren. I hope you guys like some smooth jazz background music to lighten up the mood as we are getting ready for our questionnaire. Hi Shelby. Hi everyone that's joining. So yeah, today we're going to be doing a small questionnaire about mental health and well-being with everyone's questions that you guys submitted for NGYT. Before we kick off, we just want to thank everyone for submitting in your questions, and above all, we want to thank Dr. Radha for taking her time to join us and answer. So just for this Q&A, I'm going to be turning the comments off, and I'm going to be welcoming Dr. Radha into the conversation.
Hi Bruno, hi everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So for everyone that is now just watching, Dr. Radha is a GP who has taken particular interest in mental health, and she actually created her own Instagram platform called Be One Thing, Be Kind to spread positivity around Instagram.
Oh, hello Bruno. It's really nice to
Hi.
actually really nice to kind of see everyone else as well on the platform. And can I just say I love your smooth jazz.
Thank you. I think it was a nice choice to really set in the mood.
It was.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I already said thank you, but once again, NGYT really appreciates you being here today. It's just such a good thing for you to be so open, and we already had a bit of a conversation beforehand, and I'm very excited to kick everything off. So are you ready?
I'm absolutely ready. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of
Thanks.
course. Okay, so the first question we got submitted is, what is the best way to regulate yourself after becoming emotionally distressed?
So that's a great question. I think a really important thing to say, first of all, is that you're not on your own in terms of feeling distressed or having difficult emotions or challenging thoughts. Yeah, this period of time is so challenging. It's probably one of the most challenging times, that many of us, all of us actually have lived through. So you're not on your own in those feelings. And that's important to say, because sometimes when you're feeling worried, upset, distressed, it can make you feel like you're on your own, you're the only person. So sit there and realize that actually across the world there are lots of people feeling how you're feeling, and so actually those feelings are okay to have. Really important thing to say with any sort of feelings is it's really important to share how you're feeling with someone you trust. So obviously people's situations are different, but whether or not that's with a family member, a friend that you trust, your doctor, it's really important to let someone know. If you find it difficult to say how you're feeling, then writing it down, texting can be quite useful. Even within a household, that's quite useful, because we all know.
The family group chat.
I mean, even in my household, sometimes things have got a little bit tense now and again. And so actually, kind of resolving arguments, I found actually more useful and actually more effective on text, even within the same household. So they're just some ideas, because people read something and they have the space away from it. They don't necessarily react straight away. They have time to kind of let it sink in and respond. So share how you're feeling and let those feelings out. So although we don't want to feel certain feelings, actually processing them, expressing them is really important, because when we don't, they stay inside us and they can turn into things like depression or anxiety long term. So that might be having a really good cry. I've definitely had a cry in the last few months. It might be going for a run. It might be drumming. It might be listening to music. It might be watching a film where you can relate to something in that storyline, for example. Whatever you find best. Journaling, for example, just express those feelings. And then afterwards, Really just be gentle with yourself. I think this is a time when there's a lot of conversation about kindness to other people, and that is really, really important, but it's also very important to be kind to yourself and be gentle with yourself. So if your friend or a young child had been upset, or been through something very distressing emotionally, how would you react to them? You'd probably give them a hug. You'd probably say, it'll be okay, don't worry. You'd probably make them a cup of tea. You'd probably give them space to just kind of have a bit of time out. So I think the same advice really is important for you to give yourself. But the most important thing I can say really is to let someone know, how you've been feeling and what's been going on for you. Because by talking to people, we know we're not alone. We know that they're there for us, and we feel instant relief from doing that as well.
Yeah, I feel like that's really good advice, even for myself, because I feel that taking time to really step back and then just process everything really helps. And I think everyone in the comments is agreeing with you based on the amount of hearts we're getting.
I think, traditionally, I think we haven't been great. We've sort of divided emotions or feelings into sort of good feelings and bad feelings, so we kind of think, joy and happiness is good, and obviously we love that, it makes us feel wonderful, but in my mind, there isn't such a thing as a bad feeling. I think every feeling has a purpose. It's trying to tell you something, or it's trying to help you express something, or it's trying to help you reach out for support. So those more challenging feelings, although they can feel distressing, they're important to be with, sit with, and reach out for support, to actually acknowledge, because they can actually, sadness, when we have a cry, we actually feel better afterwards. There's a kind of reason for those feelings. So try to be with them more, and obviously reach out for support if you need that, while you're being with those feelings or those emotions.
Thank you for that. I think that was a really good answer.
Oh, thanks.
Our next question is actually asking for any advice for people that are living with someone that has mental illness.
Mm-hmm. So that's another good question, isn't it? Because we often talk about people who might be suffering themselves, but what about the people around them?
Yeah.
So they have a massive part to play, especially at the moment, because obviously with less social contacts, the people that they're living with are even more important in terms of the support network. So for that person, you might want to support them in terms of staying in contact with their GP, their medical doctor, their specialist team if they have one, making sure they're having video appointments, or they're staying in contact with their specialists and their mental health specialists, so they can actually give them the right advice. That's really important. Other things you can do are encourage them to stay motivated. So, for all of us, it's been really tough to sort of remember to get up and wash our hair and brush our teeth and get dressed every day, because we haven't got much of a routine.
Yeah.
But if you have got depression or anxiety or something else, some other mental health illness, then actually that can be even harder. So encourage them to stay motivated and do all the sort of self-care stuff. And then I think the other two things I would say is encourage them to communicate with you regularly. So set aside time where you actually sit down with them and give them space to talk about how they're feeling. Make sure you're checking in, even if you're living in the same house, regularly with that person as to how they're doing. And most importantly of all, let them know that whatever they're going through, whatever they're feeling, you are there for them. They can come and talk to you. They can come and ask you for support. Because again, sometimes we get overwhelmed. We think, I can't fix that person's problems. I can't help them. I can't make it all go away. And you're right, we can't. But actually what we can do is be there for somebody. And that is the most important thing that we can do for anyone who's around us who might be experiencing distress at the moment.
And in a way, it also reconnects with what you were saying at first about taking time to process your own emotions before you engage again. I think that was really valuable advice.
And I think also for people who are caring for other people, really important to be looking after your own mental health, because we can't give what we haven't got. So, recognizing that, you also need to have some time for yourself to recharge your batteries.
I think you're giving us gold here with your advice. The next question, there's quite a long statement. It says, my daughter has just turned 13 and she has been suffering from anxiety for just over a year. We have just been discharged from CHUMS, which is a well-being service for children and young people, and she's got all the tools to try and cope. But she had a major setback and around her birthday about 2 weeks ago, and she's back to feeling sick, very insecure. And the question is, how can they, as a parent, be able to deal with these setbacks? But the parent actually has been dealing with anxiety themselves. They said, I myself suffer with anxiety and low mood, which came to head in February time, and it triggered unresolved issues that I should have addressed years ago. So it's been a rough time getting her through her anxiety while trying to cope with mine, because the daughter herself isn't aware of the anxiety. So back to the question, how can I as a parent help her with these setbacks?
So great question. Thank you for sharing that. And I also would like to just say, you know, I feel for you. I'm sure everyone watching feels for you and your daughter, because that's a very challenging situation. So I would definitely try to separate you and your daughter in terms of how you might think about helping each other. When you're a parent, obviously, or when you care about someone, you love them and you see them in distress, your immediate reaction is, right, I need to go and do everything for them. But again, as we were saying a minute ago, it's really important for you to also look after your own mental health. With your mental health, with parents' good mental health, comes their children's good mental health. So I would really encourage that parent to reach out for support, contact their GP, have a discussion with them about what's been happening for them, get some support from their GP, and get some signposting onto other services also from their doctor. There are also some great organisations with lots of resources like Mind, for example. There's Samaritans, and there's the NHS website, which has got some great mental health advice and tips on there as well. So have a look at that. And also make sure as a parent, you're choosing a friend that you trust, or someone that you can actually talk to yourself. So, you know, you're taking on all of this worry about your daughter. You need also a place to go with that, and someone to actually talk to about how you're feeling, because they also need to support you with that. So I would definitely say that for that parent initially. And then for your daughter, I think it's a great idea to get back in contact with Chums, which was the service that your daughter was under, although obviously she was discharged with all the coping skills and strategies. Again, it's helpful to speak to your daughter's GP, and perhaps speak to Chums as well. They may offer a sort of boost up service or a few sessions to help your daughter get back on track, because even though we have coping strategies and she's learnt some, this is a really challenging time. And so however many strategies we know, it's sometimes not easy to implement those and to action those when everything else around us is so chaotic and changing all the time. So that would be something I definitely recommend. And then also sit and talk to your daughter about what's happened. So depending on obviously her personality and how much she likes talking, try to chat to her about what happened, what was a setback, how does she feel, how is she feeling about the future, what things does she still enjoy doing, and almost draw up a little action plan with your daughter around the things, the activities that she still enjoys or she used to enjoy, and try to make sure she has some of those peppered through her week. So almost get a little, I'm a big fan of timetables. I did a lot of exams when I was at university. Almost kind of timetable it. So get a little planner, a sort of fun planner, where your daughter and you can do that together as a joint activity, and write down on each kind of day what activities you're going to pop in there with her to do that she actually enjoys, so she's got something to look forward to. Also make sure she's actually having contact with her friends and her peers from school, because again, she must be missing her friends a lot. So scheduling in some Zoom calls, some online games and stuff they can do together, some online baking, something like that, where it's actually an activity where they can do something together so she feels that connection with her friends is also really important. But I think, you know, in the first instance, I would definitely say it's important to reach out for support for yourself, and get someone also who can listen to you. And then you're able to provide that for your daughter alongside the GP, and hopefully the Chum service may also provide some resources as well. There's also Young Minds, which is a great charity and place to be. They are two great charities for children and young people's mental health, so they have some great resources and help there as well for them if they need it.
I think it's really, really great that we have parents actually stepping forward and asking for advice on these situations, because obviously growing up in Portugal, I always grew up in a culture that never really talked much about mental health. So my parents never really had those types of mechanisms. So I actually had to go out and search for these kinds of helplines that you just suggested. And I really want to underline how important they are. I've used Anxiety UK quite a few times to cope with my own feelings. So what you just mentioned is really, really valuable.
Oh, that's fantastic, Bruno. And again, people hearing you say that will really help them as well.
Hmm.
Again, it's really important we talk about this and we're open about it. And again, with that particular parent and child, again, it depends on that particular child, and her parent knows her best. But actually sometimes sharing strategies that you're using to help alongside your child. Say, do you know what, I'm feeling a bit worried about things at the moment. What I do when I'm worried is I go for a walk. Let's go for a walk together. So you almost kind of help your child see that you're actually doing the things that you're advising them to do, because words can work, but action is
Yeah.
powerful.
And you're building connections as well by going out on a walk. So you're not just helping them with their mental health, you're actually building a really strong connection with your child, right?
Exactly.
Our next question is more related to our world right now, and someone wants to know, how can we safeguard our mental health with all that is going on right now?
Wow, that is such an important question.
And a very big one as well.
I like big questions though. I like them, and I like actually talking about things that people don't want to talk about, because it means we need to talk about them even more. So thank you for that question. So when this situation all kind of first started, I was doing a lot of interviews on radio and television about mental health, and I was thinking, what can I do? I have a little notebook and I make some notes before I do interviews. And I was noticing a lot of words were beginning with C. And I was like, oh, what can I do with this C thing? So I was in my notes. And so I came up with the idea of my 5 C's. So I think hopefully this will be a really good framework, a good template to help people. It's definitely helped me day to day when I've had a bit of a tough day or a bit of a challenging day. I sort of think about these. So are you ready, Bruno?
Go for it. I was already thinking in my head. I was ready. Okay, how can I name 5 things starting with a C?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do it. You go first. You can show me.
Could include a cat. I mean, I'm not. Maybe that's a 6th C, because our pets are really good for us. But anyway, so
Okay.
our first C is control.
Okay.
So a lot of our anxiety or worries come from a lack of control and feeling like we're not in control. So my first C is all about recognizing what you are in control of and being proactive about doing things for that. So for example, it may feel like we're not in control of anything at the moment, but that's not true. We are in control of quite a lot of things. So we're in control of obviously following medical guidance, minimizing our risk to stay safe, and all of those things. So all of those things you can focus on: the hand washing, the social distancing. That's you being proactive about what you can control. You also can control, to a certain degree, or most of the time, your attitude and your choices in each moment. So for example, if you're having a bit of a tough day, in that moment, and maybe with support as well if you need it, you can make a choice in that moment to actually go and do something that will make you feel better. So we all have a choice in each moment. I'm either going to sit here and things will kind of spiral down, or I can get up and I can go for a walk. I can ring someone to ask for support. I can put on a bit of music and get myself busy. So those things you are in control of. And actually, when you start to realize what you're in control of, you'd be quite surprised. There's quite a lot of things. And when we're proactive about those things, our anxiety reduces, because we're doing something towards reducing our anxiety. And on the flip side of that, you've got the things that you can't control. So we're not in control of this virus. We're not in control of when it's going to finish and when this situation is going to end. Lots of things we're not in control of. So what you need to do is actually recognize what you're not in control of, write a list of those things, and then every time one of those thoughts comes into your mind, say, okay, this is something that I can't control. So what I need to do now is I need to either talk to someone about it, go and do something to take my mind away from it, or I need to let it go. And that might be with visualization, it might be with meditation, it might be lots of different strategies, but it's all about recognizing what you can't control and trying to not waste your emotional and mental energy on that right now. So that's my first C. My second.
I was counting. I had my fingers up. Control. I think it's also worth saying that like everyone that's joining us today is already taking that first step of taking control and acknowledging that we need to be talking about mental health. So it's really good.
At 100%, yes, because they're here. Exactly right. That's fantastic. So second C is care. So that's all about self-care. So that's about getting up, getting washed, getting dressed, brushing your teeth, exercising, eating well. They're all things about self-care. And self-care, actually, our bodies are very much we are one. We're not, our mental health and physical health is not separate. So those things are really important to maintain. Third C is about continuity. So that's about building in a structure, a timetable, having some kind of certainty within your week, maybe like a little timetable we mentioned before. So continuity, so you know what to expect and you have a sense of normality. So it might be listening to your favorite TV show or your favorite radio station. Just
like you said before, to build a routine, right?
Yeah, exactly. The fourth C is about creativity. So that is about using hobbies and getting creative to help your mental health. So when you're creative, when you're doing painting or drawing or sewing or DIY or playing an instrument or whatever else creative you want to come up with, you're very much, your attention is here in the here and now, in the present moment. So you can't, it's much more difficult to worry about the past or worry about the future. So creativity is really good as a sort of mindful strategy to bring us into the present moment for our mental health. And the last C is compassion. So that's all about kindness to others, because we know that also benefits our mental health, but also it's about kindness to ourselves and being gentle to ourselves when we're having a difficult day. So hopefully those 5 C's, if you're having a difficult moment, it's either going to be related to one of the 5 C's you're not doing or one of the 5 C's that you haven't quite noticed. So try to think about one of the things that you could do out of those 5 C's to help in those tough moments.
Okay, so for the people watching, if they have a memory as terrible as mine, they're going to need a reminder. So go try with me. So first C, control,
yes,
care,
yes,
continuity,
yes,
creativity,
yeah,
and compassion.
Yay!
Yay!
You've got a great memory.
Thank you. I tried so hard. I was like, control, care, continuity.
That was quite hard because I was doing a lot of waffling and talking.
But it was good. What you said is so important and it resonates with me so much. We also have another question. Our audience is intrigued on how lockdown has been for you. Obviously, you're someone who's very passionate about mental health, so you have a lot of different knowledge and mechanisms. So how has lockdown been for you?
So it's been, I'm sure for everyone else, it's been tough at times. Definitely, it's been really challenging. Everything has changed. I'm quite a creature of habits, even though I do different things. I still do like the feeling of having some sense of normality and grounding. And obviously, you know, it's been really difficult to see all of the awful news stories and, you know, everyone getting ill and people passing away, and you know, it's been really, really hard. There's been lots of moments I've had of sadness and lots of moments of anxiety. So it's been tough. Having said that, I've also seen a lot of moments of kindness, a lot of moments of people coming together and people helping each other, which really helps me through those moments. And it's also actually really helped crystallize in my mind what strategies I use to help myself. So before I kind of had an idea about what things helped me on difficult days, but this period of time has really brought that into sharper focus, and I found that I've really had to on some days be much more proactive about making sure I'm doing those things, and I haven't always succeeded. Some days I've just been like, right, I can't do it today, or you know, some days
and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And some days, you know, it's not necessarily always appropriate to want to kind of feel better and take that emotion away. Sometimes it's really appropriate and you need to just go and have a cry, or you need to get back into bed, or you need to go and have a sleep, and that's okay too. It's not all about, you know, kind of washing away the difficult emotions. It's about actually working with them so you can come out over the other side of them into
take a step back and process.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but I'm doing okay. I think you know, this time it's really important for people to almost create a little kind of backpack of tools, of strategies that they can use, and when they noticed in certain moments they might be feeling angry or sad or lonely or upset, they can choose the right tool from that backpack to help them. And I think that's hopefully what I want to try and help people do, and I've been trying to do it myself as well.
No, I think what you said about strategies is actually so important, because I realized that at the beginning of the lockdown, I was so focused on all the negative news. Like the first thing I did in the morning was pick up my phone, open whatever news app I have, and just immediately read all these bad news about Corona and about lockdown. And I acknowledged that, just like you recommended. And then I started looking at more positive news, and I could immediately see a shift in my mental health and how I was feeling. So that kind of became a bit of a mechanism for myself. So I really, really find it interesting that you're mentioning about having these strategies. So for every negative news that I was reading, I forced myself to read something positive or something that would lift me up. So I think that is gold.
Oh, I love that. I love that strategy you use. I love that. That's great. Because actually, like you say, you know, what we feed our minds, what we watch, what we read, and what we hear obviously has a huge impact on us. And like you were saying, for me as well, with the news, I think I'm quite a visual person. So I think if I see pictures and images, I find them very difficult to get them out of my head. So for me, I prefer to listen to news on the radio, so just audio rather than visual. Obviously, I watch news sometimes, but I think it's all about, like you say, working out, you know, how do you consume news, how much are you going to consume, what's healthy for you, and when are you going to consume it, and kind of almost get a set of rules and balance it, like you say. You know, there are lots of other things going on, so actually balancing that out is really helpful. I love that. That's great advice.
It's about, like you said, about finding your own strategies.
Yes, absolutely.
So our next question is, how do you battle depression during lockdown?
So first thing to say, it's really important is, you know, have you had a diagnosis? Have you spoken to a doctor about that? Do you already have depression, or is this something that's just started during this period? Because again, unfortunately, with what's going on, obviously there are going to be people who develop depression during this time. So if you're not sure, the NHS website's got a great tool there to help you work out if you might be depressed. And again, really important to then speak to a GP, reach out to some of those organisations that I mentioned before, Samaritans, for example, Young Minds, to help you, and don't go on your own with that. Because the thing about depression, obviously, is that it demotivates you. You find it difficult to get motivation to enjoy anything. So most important thing I would say in terms of depression during this period is to tell somebody, because we can't always do it on our own. We can't necessarily find the motivation to even call our GP or our doctor. And so it's even more important with depression that actually someone is there helping us do those things, doing those things on our behalf, and making sure we're eating well, we're sleeping well, we're getting the support we need. So that would be my main bit of advice. Obviously, other things, once you've seen your GP and had professional advice, would be around exercise. I think exercise is so helpful for pretty much
that dopamine.
Yeah, pretty much everything, actually. I think I'm a big fan of exercise. And when I say exercise, I don't want people to be put off by that, because sometimes people have this image that they have to, you know, run a half a marathon, or they have to, you know, do a triathlon, and it's not that at all. I probably prefer the term getting active.
Yeah.
Because that means it is something that your movement, you know, you're just moving, you're doing something you enjoy. It might be dance, it might be skipping.
I agree completely.
I've just, like, during this time, I bought like a little mini trampoline.
Yeah.
And I started to do little trampolining things, like little workouts.
I bought skipping ropes. It's what works for you, right?
Yeah, and I've loved it. So exercise really helpful, like you say, the dopamine, the serotonin. Also, it helps you sleep. It gets rid of stress and tension. It also gives you a goal. It gives you something to do during that day, and a sense of achievement, which I think is important. And again, lots of things with the arts, reading books, films, plays, all of those things. Gardening, nature. For me, nature has been a really important thing right now, to go outside and look at the birds and the trees. And it just gives you a sense of something greater, a kind of comfort, a sort of safety that things in nature are still going on. So I think all of those things are actually really helpful add-ons.
You could also join a live in which we're having a very open conversation about mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not feeling alone, Bruno. It's so important, isn't it? And also, making sure, you know, we were talking about before about what we consume in terms of news, but also I was noticing I was actually watching some quite serious dramas, or I was watching kind of soap operas, and they had quite heavy storylines. I was thinking,
Yeah.
actually, I need to watch something cheerful, you know. So I was like, right, I need to watch some comedies. I need to watch some kind of uplifting things. A lot of people with anxiety have told me they found that actually watching old series or old box sets that they know really well have helped them, because they know what's coming next, and it's also kind of, and a familiarity of like happier times. So
I just realized I do that exact same
yeah,
thing, and I never noticed. It is because of that familiarity and the nostalgia that it gives you as well, right?
yeah, exactly. The comfort. I mean, I grew up on listening to audiobooks as well. I love audiobooks. And I've really gone back into listening to audiobooks more and more. And it really almost reminds me of like, you know, my days of like being a teenager and feeling that just kind of that comfort of something
Yeah.
that is safe. So I think, you know, those things are also really important in your day-to-day lives, and even more so at this time as well.
That's really good advice. That's advice that I've been doing, but I haven't even acknowledged. You know, the other day, I was having a really interesting conversation about the importance of acknowledging things that we are doing. Even though they're healthy, we need to acknowledge them so we can actually see how
Yeah.
much positivity they bring into us. And just watching an old film is something so simple that has such a positive impact.
Oh, I love that. And actually that's very useful actually in terms of establishing a habit. Because like you say, sometimes we do these things subconsciously, we don't even realize, but actually once you acknowledge them and you become conscious that they help you, then you start to form a habit. Your brain forms things like habit loops where you
Yeah.
say, okay, I did this thing and I felt better, and therefore you get that positive feedback and you want to do it again and again and again, and
Hmm.
that becomes, like we were talking about before, a strategy or a tool in your kind of backpack. So I think that's wonderful. I don't do that enough. I need to do that more. So
We don't even realize, like,
I know,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
true.
Okay, so the next question is from a teacher.
Mhm.
They want to know how as teachers can we support our young people and their families with their mental health at this difficult time while taking into consideration we may not be able to relate to their circumstances.
Wow, that's a great question, and just a massive shout out to teachers, and every person who is in a role where they have with young people and they are supporting young people right now, because they're doing an incredibly difficult job. Not only are they dealing with things in their own personal life and their own challenging
Yeah.
situation, but they're also being a figurehead for young people to be that point of safety, contact, mentorship, you know, leadership. So yeah, shout out to everyone, all the kind of youth workers.
Massive shout
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. You're doing a great job in very difficult circumstances. Um, I would say really important for teachers again to look after their mental health. Just like for doctors, nurses, paramedics, all the key workers in shops, you know, they're doing a really difficult job. So you must ensure that your mental health is, you know, at a good level, and you're taking time and space for yourself as well to maintain that. I did a like a little. There's a quite a good website called A World of Better Learning, which is from Cambridge University Press. I did a little blog on there a few weeks ago, but also they've got lots and lots of different people writing articles with videos and support and educational support for teachers. So that might be something that's helpful for that teacher in question. There's also the incredible BBC Teach. Um,
Hmm.
got some really good resources for teachers on there. In terms of you supporting that young person, I think contact is probably the most important thing. So regular contacts and letting that young person know you're there for them if they need to reach out to you. And I think also sharing and passing on resources is also important. So even if you might not necessarily understand their particular situation, if you're regularly signposting and sending through links of resources, then hopefully one of the issues they might be going through, even if you don't know about it, will be covered in there. That's really important. And I think the other thing that's really helpful is creating a sort of peer or young person's kind of network, a regular check-in contacts in a group of young people, because often, you know, when we're in a group of our peers, we feel more comfortable to talk about things that are really affecting us. And so you being part of that in that group of young people together may pick up on something that you haven't really realized, and then you may be able to then help them with that particular issue if they haven't actually told you about it before. So I think my main thing would be your own mental health, regular contacts, signposting, and just being a person, like we were saying before, with like a parent, that person feels they can come and talk to about something they're worried about.
Thank you. That was a really good answer.
That's okay.
You know, what you said, it really, really resonates because talking to my peers, I've always found it much more comfortable having a conversation with someone that I think is going to understand me more. So the fact that you suggested that these platforms and groups are created is so valuable because, you know, sometimes I lack motivation to do it myself, even though I want to do it.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I mean, there are also the other thing that might be a great idea as well is to, like we're doing on this Instagram live chat, is to actually start up a kind of project for the young people, your students, to do a project on mental health, or to do a piece or a piece of work, or a kind of like a drama piece or a music or a poem piece, for example, as a group, to help them express their sort of how they're feeling. And so you're opening up that conversation, but you're doing it in a kind of creative and a non-confrontational or a non-direct way, so people feel more comfortable to start learning about mental health, and also to hear perhaps what other people are going through that also may help them open up as well and talk about things that they might feel difficult to talk about in the first place.
And it doesn't, I suppose it doesn't necessarily have to be something as performative as a drama piece. I mean, you created Be One Thing, Be Kind, and it was all at the fingertips on Instagram. So Instagram is such a platform that's accessible for young people. So it could be just encouraging them to create a project just like you did.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I came up with that idea. Just, it was all about kindness, really. So earlier in the year, before this all happened, I just felt like people were really yearning for a bit more kindness, and to actually see the kindness that's in the world. So yeah, I decided, for my own psychology, I suppose, my own kind of well-being, to create a kind of positive project. And it's been really nice, not just to get people's feedback from the stories that I've shared on there, but also it's actually been really great for my mental health, because when we were talking about news before, it's made me search for good news to share on my platform. So I've actually read a lot more good news than perhaps other people have, because I've been looking for it for my project. So yeah, that's a great idea.
And that really ties with all the advice you've been giving, which is take back, process your feelings, and create strategies that can help you feel good.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Our next question is, I am struggling on so many levels. The whole Black Lives Matter explosion alongside isolation is just too much. What advice would you give me?
Yeah, so again, that's been something which I've definitely felt. I think a lot of people have felt just so overwhelmed by everything that's been happening, and lots of different feelings. I mean, lots of feelings of emotional kind of despair, tiredness, feelings of anger, feelings of powerlessness, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to help. And at a time when I think this has really resonated as well with people, because I think at a time when it's even more important for us, it's always been so important, the most important thing, but it's even more a time where it's even more important for us to all join together, be unified, help each other, be kind to each other. You know, these things that have happened have been absolutely horrendous. So one of the things I would say to that person is to recognize how you're feeling, and also to have some time and space away from that. So like you were saying, Bruno, about social media or the news, when you start to find it's overwhelming, take a step back, have some time out.
Absolutely. Put your phone down for a second.
Yeah, we never put our phones down, do we?
Especially now when everything we have is our phones.
Yeah, you're right. So I think having some time and space away from that is really important. I think also turning that situation to something proactive also can help our feelings of powerlessness or hopelessness. So for example, how can you educate yourself? Can you read a book about, you know, Black Lives Matter, about race? Can you make yourself more informed? How can you spread that message? How can you share what you've learned with other people? That helps us feel like we're doing something proactive and something positive in a very difficult situation, which will reduce our anxiety and make us feel better, and also, more importantly, do some good in the world as well. And I think also, I did a little post on Instagram this week about your emotional battery kind of being drained. So you know, like last week I was feeling a bit like that myself, and I thought, okay, what does that, you know, when a battery you put in your, I don't know, like your alarm clock or something, not alarm clock, that's, we don't know, really, it has an alarm clock anymore, but anyway, when you use a battery and the battery charge goes down, what do you need to do to recharge it? And so again, those activities like exercise, like seeing your friends, like watching films, like reading, excuse me, they're all important to actually recharge your emotional battery. And when that's recharged, you can then go out in the world and you can take something positive with you. So I think that's really important to say as well.
What you said about education is really, really important right now, especially because you don't even need to, if that's not your thing, you don't need to read a book. You can just literally click a hashtag on Facebook or Instagram, and you have so much information at your fingertips that you can just learn, educate yourself. So that's a very, very valuable tip.
Absolutely. And also, so I do a podcast for Radio 1 called Life Hacks, and we do a podcast every week and a live show every week. And our podcast this week was actually about that. It was actually about, about Black Lives Matter, but also we've done lots of different podcasts about mental health. So again,
does it go up at the same day every week?
So they're about different topics every week. So we've done a lot of special ones about coronavirus, about our feelings about mental health, particularly related to coronavirus, and about students and exams and your mental health. But also we did a lot of ones before, which are about all kinds of different topics. So you'll pretty much, if you go on there, you'll find, if you're thinking about something or you're wondering about something, pretty much you'll find something about that on one of those. So if that's helpful, then that's there for you as well.
And how can we find it?
So if you just go to BBC Sounds or Apple Podcasts, you just type in Life Hacks podcast, and it will come up.
And do you post a new one like every Monday, every Tuesday? When do you post a new one?
Yeah, so they come out on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday there'll be a new one. So this week's just come out, and next week we've got one all about music for our mental health. So there are lots of different topics each week. Yeah.
So that's a really good shout out for anyone in the comments. BBC Sounds, Life Hacks, and you can listen to Dr. Radha talk about a different topic every week.
I was just thinking about what people are talking about. I thought actually that's a really good resource, because I'm on there with Katie, who's the other presenter, and we chat between ourselves, but also we have guests on, so they actually give their expertise. For example, we've had one about sleep, we did one about strategies for anxiety, so lots of different things. So a lot of things we're talking about, I was just like, oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, that's there for you if you need it.
Okay, so our next question says, I'm struggling to engage with the whole online interaction and virtual socializing thing. I just don't feel comfortable. Should I try and push through this and give it a go so I'm getting some sort of interaction or not? How will this be affecting me long term in terms of cutting off from my friends? And they also asked, how can I ensure I am getting the interactions I need for my own state of mind? I think this is a really, really important question.
It's also a very interesting question, because each of us is very different, aren't we? We're all very different in terms of the levels of social interaction we need or we want, and also the type of interaction we have as well. And I think this period of time is also really teaching us to learn about ourselves. Like, what kind of person are we? Do we need a lot of social interaction? Is it in a group? Is it just with one or two people? So I would say to that person, what is it that's making you feel uncomfortable about those social interactions online? Is it, for example, you're doing it with 10 people and you can't get a word in edgeways because they're all talking too much and you don't feel heard, you don't feel listened to? Is it the platform you're using and actually you're not very comfortable with the technology or how it works? Is it that you're kind of saying yes to things when actually you want some time to yourself, and then you're feeling annoyed because you can't say no? I know that's happened to quite a few of my friends. They're like, oh, actually, I don't want to do that tonight. I just want to watch a film, but I don't know what to say to get out of it. None of us are like, I'm busy, sorry, I'm going out. Okay, none of us are really like that. So I'm trying to work out what's making you feel uncomfortable about it, or why don't you like it? First of all, what is it about it? And then try to switch around to tailor that then into something that you do feel comfortable with. So, if you're someone who wants to just catch up with, one or two people, you're really good friends once a week, then you kind of draw those rules. You set down the rules and the boundaries, and you make it work for you. I would also say that sometimes during this period of time, if you are going through a low period or you're quite anxious or things are quite challenging, sometimes our reaction is to withdraw from connection with people, because we don't have the energy to give out, or we feel like we have to put on a front or a face to people and pretend we're happy. And I would say that it's important to not withdraw totally from social connection, because it's important for our mental health. It's very important for how we feel and actually connections in terms of our mental, emotional well-being. So try not to withdraw totally, but also maybe try to just pick up on the people and interact with people who you don't have to put a front up with. You can just be yourself, and you can be honest about how you're feeling, and not kind of have to summon up the energy to pretend to be anything you're not. But I would say it is important, I think, to have social connection and to have contacts. but perhaps just redraw the boundaries and write the list of rules about how you want to be in that so you're comfortable.
I think, in essence, a lot of what of the advice you've been giving and a lot of what you're saying is to acknowledge how you're feeling and then be able to develop these strategies. So I think that that's really important to underline that.
Yeah, and if you're someone who keeps saying yes to people and then you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't said yes to that, another Zoom call, then just say no. You have a right to say no. There's no, people will not take it personally, and if they do, maybe they're not the right people to be around, but you have a right to say no. Your priority is to look after your mental health, and so actually it's very important not to be bombarded by WhatsApp messages and text messages. I have to reply now, I must reply now, I haven't. It's a really challenging time, so you must be easy on yourself and feel free to say no. And also, if you do find yourself withdrawing or feeling like you don't want to socialize, and again, that might be a bit of a red flag or an alarm bell in terms of depression or anxiety. So again, reach out to your GP or your doctor if you are finding that is becoming something which you don't really want to do, you're not enjoying as much as well.
Thank you. That was really good. What really works for me, like I said, is just putting my phone down and just breathing in, taking my surroundings around, and then carrying on. So that's really, really good advice.
And don't put your phone down and away. So if you're going to read a book and put your phone in a different room. If you're going out for a run, you don't have, you might want your phone for your music, but don't mix up tasks and activities.
Yeah.
Try to, and I'm not that good at this, okay, so I've got to hold my hands up. But I think it's very important at the moment to really focus on one thing at a time and really be fully immersed in what you're doing, rather than your brain. We think we can multitask, but actually our brains are not made to multitask, so don't do that either.
Up next, we have another question from a parent, and they said, I'm really struggling with my children at the moment. They're so angry for what seems all the time. We have definitely overcompensated by giving them more of what they want. But is this to our and their detriment in the long term? What do you think?
So I would say it's been a very challenging time, very difficult time. And so a lot of our behaviours have changed towards each other because we are trying to be more accommodating, more understanding. We want people to be okay if they're feeling distressed. I guess also, though, that can then become a habit. And so it depends on the kinds of things you're compromising on. I mean, obviously that can then tip over the other way, where actually then people start expecting those things and perhaps it's not great for them in the long run. I would also say, though, probably more to the point is if anger tends to come from a place of fear. And so I would try to work out or try to ask them or understand, where is this anger coming from? What's it actually about? A lot of the time it's very difficult for young people. They're not at school, they're not with their friends, they've got uncertainties and worries about their future. There may be family issues going on, for different people. It's very difficult, and hearing all these headlines, it's very upsetting for young people in particular to think about the future and what that means. So try to understand, where is this anger coming from? I think it's probably coming from a fear. And so if you can ask them about their fears and anxieties, try to help them through those and try to help them work out some practical steps or solutions to help them feel better, a bit like an action plan, you may find that anger will subside. If they're frustrated about not seeing their friends, what other ways can you help them feel connected? Or they might be frustrated because they're not as independent as they were. And teenage years are very important for creating independence and feeling like we're forging our own way in the world. So what else can they do something online to make themselves feel independent? Can you help them work out what it is they want for their future and create a vision and a goal for the future? Because even though their goals and visions might be having taken away from them at the moment, it's very important they can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. But just having almost like a timeline, I came up with the idea of kind of drawing a timeline, not with months or days on it, because we don't know when things are going to end, but just a general timeline, and just marking a few things on there, a few goals that they can work towards, so they can see that this will end, and it will end. I think it's important.
And remember the 5 C's.
Yeah, the 5 C's.
Control, care, continuity, creativity, and compassion.
Bruno, you got it.
No, because they're so important. When you said that stuff, and as you were talking about it, it was just resonating with me so much. Like it's really valuable information that I want to engrave in my head.
Oh,
so thank you.
No, my pleasure. I use it myself, so.
Okay. Our next question is, I feel like I want to tell my friends who appear to have stopped and cut off to keep going and try to do things that they enjoy. Is this good advice?
I think it's really good advice. I think there's a place for that advice. So sometimes when people are angry, upset, worried, anxious, in that acute sort of phase of feeling those feelings very deeply, it may not help, because giving that advice then to say, come on, do things you enjoy, that may make them feel like they're not being heard or listened to, and it may make them shut down and feel like they can't talk to you. So I would allow them to express their feelings and to listen to them about their feelings and to just give them space to express those. And then I think after that, there's a place then for you to say, okay, you've told me how you feel. I'm here for you. Here's some support you might need. But also, what about these things that actually might make you feel better? Why don't we do those together? Why don't we encourage each other to kind of do those things? I think that second phase, that there's a place for all of those practical steps. But sometimes if someone is coming to you saying, I'm feeling really upset, and you say, oh, come on, just do something you enjoy, they're going to get frustrated because they're going to feel like you're just shutting them down and you're not hearing them, and they need to be heard. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, in the second phase, that's really important, because actually I was doing that with my friends. Kind of when I was finding it difficult to be motivated, we were texting each other before we went out on our run or our walk every day. We weren't going out together to run or walk, but we were in totally different places. But we would text each other before and then text each other after with a photo of like
I did it.
So there are things you can help them, kind of to help them remember what they enjoy. You can do things like that with them. You know, one of my friends, unfortunately, her mum passed away last year and she's been having a difficult time in this period. So she was starting to withdraw a bit from chatting. And I said, okay, why don't we do some online baking together? So I made some Paw Patrol cupcakes really badly with her online. But, you know, it made her laugh because I got the instructions totally wrong. And it made her think about something else. And it was an activity where she wasn't talking about what was wrong, but she was having some joy and some distraction and some connection. So it's just about working out things like that, really, I think.
I think it's what you said is really good about being there for your friends and being able to maintain a certain routine and connection while social distancing.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Our next question says, my family and I are having to completely shield, and I was diagnosed with an eating disorder a year ago. And now that I'm completely unable to go on my walk due to needing to stay inside, I'm not sure how I'm going to occupy my time and replace my walking. I don't want to relapse. Do you have any advice?
Good question. So actually on our podcast, we did one the week before last about eating disorders. So that's there for you to listen to. We have a guest who actually experienced an eating disorder. So that might be helpful to have a listen to. But generally speaking, it's very important for you to get back in touch with your eating disorder team, with your team of specialists if you had one, or obviously your GP as well, to kind of talk to them about strategies to prevent relapse or to minimize relapse. As a reminder as well about the kind of tools that they were talking to you about in terms of how to manage the eating disorder. So definitely get back in touch with them for sure. Also talk to your family or whoever you're living with about what you're struggling with, because again, with an eating disorder, the people around you are very important in terms of how they manage your feelings and how you're managing their feelings. So talk to them, be open with them as well. And then try to find things which are going to occupy your mind. So we all have our own sort of strategies for things. So one of my friends really, really loves swimming for her sort of anxiety. Obviously she can't go swimming at the moment. So she's like, what can I do? And it took her about 3 or 4 weeks. She was kind of quite worried because her swimming was really something which helped her a lot and grounded her. But she's now bought a bike. She's like loving cycling. She's totally kind of changed her hobbies. Another one of my friends has just recently got into gardening. That's really helped her. So what is it? Obviously, this person is shielding, so that's more difficult to do things outside. But what can you do inside? There's things like Tai Chi, there's yoga, there might be painting. What kind of activity can you almost replace the walking with to keep yourself busy and occupied? And also, even more important, to have that kind of timetable and structure in the day so you are keeping yourself busy and occupied. But I think important to go back to the treatment team and your GP as well to get their strategies they worked on with you to help you as well.
Absolutely. And starting a new hobby, I think a lot of people started doing that since lockdown began. So the importance of really like learning new things, it's just good in general because you're not only learning something new, but you're also being able to cope with all these issues.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, our minds are really helpful things, but when we much, they're not helpful. So, you know, there's a balance. You know, our brains are there to be kind of used by us to kind of solve problems or to help us get to where we want to be. But obviously then, you know, when we have too much time, we can start to ruminate and our thoughts can go round and round and round, and actually then our minds are kind of controlling us because then we can't stop worrying. So it's all about trying to have a balance between kind of thoughts that are going to help us and thoughts for purpose or to get something done versus those kind of overwhelming thoughts or worries that can sometimes occupy us. So we then have to reach out for different strategies and activities to help us kind of almost get away and take ourselves away from those as well.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe it's been an hour since we started talking?
No, I can't actually.
Yeah. And it's about time that we wrap up. But before we go, I want to ask you one final question again. If anyone in the comments wants to show us their love, now is the time because we'll be going very soon. And the final question is, as a teacher, how can I check in on my children and their families still isolating at home? It is hard to read their emotions over the phone or an email.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
So I think obviously with that teacher, it's really important to check with the school and the staff and their kind of protocols about what they're doing as a school, as an institution, to kind of work out what is going on with them. Also important to talk to your peer teachers, other teachers, your colleagues about what they're doing, strategies for checking in and how they can get a good gauge of how people are feeling. But I think obviously, you know, if you're enabled to and you're allowed to, it's within those protocols, then, you know, video calling with parents and students or kind of doing a group perhaps with parents together and students together. You know, video calling is actually very helpful. It helps you see someone's eyes, their facial expression, their tone of voice, and give you lots more clues about what's happening with someone than just phone call or email. But it is tough, it's difficult. I think, you know, one of the main things as well is to make sure that that young person feels they can come to you and talk to you about anything that's troubling them. And I think underlying all of that, even if you can't video call, if that person feels they can speak to you, then that's the most important thing of all.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Once again, thank you on behalf of NGYT for joining us on this conversation. It was such a pleasure having to talk with you, and I feel like I've learned so much. Stuff that I knew but I didn't even acknowledge, new stuff, the 5 Ps. So thank you so much for all that you shared today.
Oh, thank you, Bruno. Thank you for being a wonderful host, and obviously everyone who sent in questions and everyone who's watched and listened. And I wish you all well. I think you're all amazing for wanting to be part of this conversation and to focus on mental health. And I wish you all the best. And I would just say to all of you, support each other, support yourselves, and make sure you're looking after yourselves. And there's loads and loads of support that is out there if you need it. So take care.
Of course, thank you everyone for joining us today, and for everyone that submitted your questions. This is just a reminder to keep talking about mental health. So thank you for anyone that was watching and that submitted, because you've already started this conversation and you've already begun with the first of the 5 Cs. Take control. Thank you so much for joining us again, Dr. Radha, and I hope to talk to you again very soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.